Welcome to the Washington Defender Grassroots. I'm your host, Pastor Brian Noble, CEO of Family Policy Institute of Washington. And I am excited because this is one of our first meet and greets. And we're going to get to meet a great candidate today. And just a couple of disclaimers for the PDC and all of you out there that just may want to file charges or whatever. We just want to say that nothing in this video is an endorsement of the candidates, nor the candidates' endorsement of FPIW or FPIW Action. And so we are just learning and greeting those who are running for office. One of the questions I get often from y'all is, what about Supreme Court? What about that position? How do we get to know these people? Well, I am honored to bring to the stage today Scott Edwards, an attorney out of the Seattle area who is running for office. Scott, welcome to the program.
Brian, thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And so I just barely met you before and just look forward to our time together. Let's just start out with a general question. Tell our listeners about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a state and local tax attorney here in Washington. I've been practicing for about 30 years. Maybe helpful, Washington does not have a income tax. I don't know. I don't do federal income taxes. My focus is entirely on Washington specific state and local taxes. But I've been doing that for roughly 30 years now, or a little bit more than 30 years.
Wow. Wow. And so obviously you've lived in the Seattle area for those 30 years. Otherwise you wouldn't be in Seattle. So I take it. And what's some of the favorite things about Seattle and the area that you live in?
Yeah, well, I went to University of Washington Law School. I graduated in '91, so more than 35 years ago. I've been practicing since the early '90s here. We live on Bainbridge Island, which has been just a fantastic place to raise my three children. All of whom got a great education in the public school system. Prepared them well for college.
Wow.
On a day like today, I love the sunshine that we can get on a beautiful Pacific Northwest spring day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have three kids, a wife, and you Bainbridge Island. That is great. What's one of the things that you are noticing about families and things across our state that is encouraging you? I think sometimes we always go to the discouragement, but what's one thing that you're seeing about that is encouraging you?
Well, we go to St. Cecilia Church on Bainbridge Island, and I can say one thing that's encouraging is we're seeing a lot of young families with young kids coming to church more regularly, and I really enjoy the energy that I get from that. So.
That's great. That's great. All right. So you're running for the Supreme Court. Now, if I remember, there's 9 justices. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yes.
And then at this time running, aren't there like 5 seats open or something like that? Or maybe it's 4.
This is an unusual year. Usually there are 3 positions up for election every 2 years. Most of the time, the incumbent judges are running unopposed, and there's not much going on in the election. But this year is unusual. 5 of the 9 positions are on the ballot, and there are multiple candidates for every one of those 5 positions. So I think there's something like 16 candidates altogether. So you've got your work cut out for you interviewing everybody who's running.
That's right. That's right. And we interview everyone. I mean, obviously it's a nonpartisan race, but even on the partisan side, we do Democrat, Republican, Independent. We interview as many as that will come on and just tell us, what their interest is. So why the Supreme Court? Why does that intrigue you?
Well, the Supreme Court's our highest court in Washington. It's the court of last resort for issues of Washington state law. Interpretation of the state constitution, interpretation of state statutes, and in the tax area, everything's controlled by the statutes. What do the words mean? And the both state and local taxing authority is constrained by the Constitution, which was established by the people. And so understand, most of my practice, even though it's in kind of a small niche, deals with the type of statutory and constitutional interpretation questions that the Supreme Court is faced with every day.
Wow. So when we're looking at this, and obviously the Washington State Constitution in our preamble, and then in that Section 1, Article 1 says all inherent power rests within the people, and the government derives their just power from the consent of those who are governed, something like that. And where would you? I mean, I know we have to be careful on our questions because you can't ever comment on how you would rule. But outside of that, I mean, how do you read that? What does that? What pops at the page?
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's, to some extent, it's basic civics 101 that the structure of Washington, very similar to the federal government, starts with all power is in the people. The people have established what the power of government is in the Constitution. We have three branches of government. The legislative, where policy decisions are made and the laws are adopted. The executive, that is to carry out the policies decided on by the legislature, and the role of the Supreme Court is to interpret the statute and the Constitution as they're written. There are processes for changing everything. The power to change those things is not with the court, but with the people and with the legislature.
That's interesting. The three branches of government is something that I think as a Christian, right, as a pastor, I look at that, and Isaiah 33:22 says we have our king, we have our lawgivers, and we have our judges, right? So he lays that out for us in the book of Isaiah, and we see that in our governing system. And that's just amazing to me that people understand that separation of power that we have. And so what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing that in the judicial branch, you are saying I'm to interpret the laws that are given to me through the Constitution and through the legislative branch. Is that's
correct? Yeah, it's not the court's role to make policy or decide what policy should be. That's part of the separation of powers. Those responsibilities are in the hands of the people and the hands of the legislature. The court's role is to interpret the statutes and Constitution, and in that interpretation to focus on what did the authors of that intend.
Yeah. So how would you describe the last 30 years of working in as an attorney? How has that prepared you for, we might say, such a time as this, as today?
Well, I think as I noted, while the particular area of expertise may be fairly specialized, I get to represent. My clients are businesses and families, large and small, throughout the state. Everybody's a taxpayer, essentially, and people struggle with trying to understand what their obligations are. My role starts with looking at the statute and advising people how it applies to them, and it continues to, when the Department of Revenue, for example, has written a rule that's inconsistent with the statute, to challenge the validity of the rule. In the course of this is what the statute says, the rule is saying something different. The department doesn't get to to add things that aren't in the statute. And then you go to what do the statutes mean? Are they consistent with constitutional limitations? And those types of statutory interpretation and constitutional questions are the most significant types of questions that end up going up to the Supreme Court. I've argued more than a dozen Supreme Court cases on statutory and constitutional questions over the last 30 years. So I have firsthand knowledge and experience about what the court does.
When you look at arguing in the Supreme Court of Washington, or Washington State Supreme Court, how do you think that's prepared you to be on the other side of that gavel, you might say?
Well, it's prepared me because whether you're a party or the decision maker, the standard is the same.
Mm-hmm.
What does the statute say? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is it consistent with the constitutional limitations on taxing power? And I've spent decades, focusing on that type of analysis, which is,
Right.
That's the skill set that we want our Supreme Court justices to have.
Exactly. Okay, good. All right. When you, as we go into this next season, if you were to have people know one thing about your campaign and why they should vote for you, what would you say?
Well, I guess I'd say three things in one, and that is,
Sure.
I'm running to bring an independent, principled approach to the rule of law on the Supreme Court. And I think that independence is an important aspect of that. The Supreme Court race is a nonpartisan race. Mm-hmm. And the role of a Supreme Court judge is a nonpartisan role. It's not to pursue any particular policy agenda, but to apply the law as written. And one of the motivations for my running is that I feel that we've lost both independence and that focus on the rule of law. And there's a lot of concern for putting people on who are going to agree with particular policy objectives. And I think we need to restore balance to the court and have that independent, principled application of the rule of law.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we can all have a different perspective on this thing, but I look at a judge in this simple way: is like if in basketball, you're the referee, right? So you don't have an interest on either side. You're just there to, hey, this is what it says. This is what we're doing. And this may not be an appropriate question, so just say you don't want to answer it if you don't. But there seems to be like a lot of cultural issues that have entered into the court and their decision making. Is there any comment that you'd have on those, or and if you wish not to, that's fine.
Well, I mean, beyond repeating what I've said before, I mean, it's not the court's role to either support or oppose particular cultural issues. It's the court role to be that neutral referee of what the people and the legislature have written as the law.
Mm-hmm. Good. So in your closing remarks, what would you say is, you want people to walk away from this conversation with? What do you hope they remember about you?
I hope they remember that I am I don't know if I've had a chance to say as much as would like, but I think I wanted them to focus on somebody who's coming to this not to advance a political agenda, but to serve the state that I've raised my family in, to restore trust in the integrity of the process by having principled rule of law decision makers addressing the statutory and constitutional issues that come before the court.
And how would people find out more information about you?
They can go to my website, votescottedwards.com.
All right, let me put that actually up in the notes here, so it just pops up on the screen as we go. And it is vote scottedwards.com. I take the time simply because we say it so fast, and then people forget to actually go there. So vote Scott Edwards.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Edwards.com. So that's where you can go find more information. Now, I know it's important that as you go through this time, that just having events where people can talk to you and get to know you more. Is there any of those that you'd like to announce as we go?
I don't currently have any that I can announce. The intent is to post those on the website from time to time and keep that updated. But I'm a novice in this space, and my wife is the architect of the web page, and so we are kind of learning as we're going right now.
That's great. I don't know that you being a web designer for a Supreme Court justice is the primary the primary thing. I think being a person of integrity and being neutral, I think the citizens would really appreciate that we get the agenda based. And this is just my comments, but we get the agenda out of all the branches of government, quite frankly, that we just go back to being servants, civil servants. I think would be a real delight in most people's hearts and minds. So,
well, and I think the role of a judge is a servant of the voters who elect the judge. So
that's right.
I would agree with you there.
Well, we will be doing a number of legislative district prayer stops. I think our first one's up in Whatcom County. Any of those that you want to come and either be prayed over or meet people, just feel free. Well, that's on our FPIW website, and we go there. It's candidate meet and greets for Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Anyone who wants to come, and we pray over our federal government, we pray over our state government, our counties, our cities, and that kind of thing. But we just want to invite you and anyone else who's listening, if you're out there and you'd like to come meet these candidates. I know that one of the areas as our judges is to really get to know them and who they are as a person is important. Any closing remarks, and then we're gonna end our time together.
Vote for Scott Edwards. A vote for an independent, principled, rule of law candidate. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you so much for coming on. All right. Well, we are glad that Scott was able to come on today, and want to encourage you to get out there and get to know the Supreme Court, those who are running for office, and interview them, find places where they are and ask questions, because an intrigued citizen is so important to how we keep this process moving forward in a constitutional republic. So want to encourage you to go out there and defend and advance biblical values in the public square. God bless.
You love our beautiful state, but does fighting for issues that most affect families ever feel like you're climbing alone? It can feel like an uphill climb in a hostile environment that champions causes detrimental to Washington families. Again and again, the summit feels out of reach, but you don't have to climb alone. With like-minded people fighting for Washington families by your side, the journey becomes not just possible, but powerful. The Defender app, brought to you by the Family Policy Institute of Washington, connects you with your team for the climb ahead. Connect with conservatives who care about issues affecting families in your specific county and across our state in order to make our voices be heard locally and in Olympia. Simply click Learn to stay informed about the latest news affecting families. With one click, press Huddle to team up with other conservative minds in your specific county who care about how these issues affect you in your unique community. Then simply press Activate to get involved and to make your voice heard on legislation that matters in Olympia. With the Washington Defender app, you won't face the fight alone. Together, we can make a difference for families in Washington. Download the Washington Defender app today, a simple way to let your voice be heard.